my victory so clear. It's a day we break through. It's a day we break through. It's a day.
We've been talking about the future of work, and the future of work is here. I mentioned earlier that when I had written this book originally, the intention was to be a book that would help you be a better coach of the people around you. This chapter and this video will help you be more effective at delivering feedback. And I believe that we need to elevate the principle of feedback to something a little bit different. In the spirit of co-elevation, we need to elevate feedback, which is a one-way mechanism, to that of co-development. How do two individuals, and then ultimately a group of individuals, truly go higher together? How do we give each other the kind of hard and soft skill coaching that we all need to be extraordinary? It used to be that we got our feedback, our contract of getting our feedback was from our manager. It used to be that we would look up to get the kind of feedback, the guidance, the support, the direction, what kind of skills do we need to build, what do we need for the next level, even where we were going. But today, that needs to be much more gained from not only our own motivation, but it needs to be gained from the network which we work in. The managers that we even have today that we may report into, they might not even see the work that we're doing on a day-to-day basis. So how in the world are those individuals going to be the best individuals to give us the feedback we need to be great, to give the kind of feedback that the team needs to be great? The way one happens to go about that process is fundamentally different because we need to recontract again. We need to recontract and recognize that feedback comes from the team, that I am open to feedback from my peers. I am open to give feedback to my peers, and I am not a coward. I am courageous, and because I care. It's so important, once again, to land back when we were talking about serve, share, and care, and maintaining that. It is so important that you maintain the commitment to serve each other in this team. Remember, we're co-elevating, we're going higher together, we're committing to the mission, but we're also committing to each other. A part of the commitment to each other, and one of the most generous things we could do for each other, is in fact to give each other feedback constantly, courageously, with empathy, with care, but courageously and constantly. Now, as I mentioned, this should be something you recontract. You're gonna have this dialogue right up front. You're gonna say to your team, you're gonna say to that first individual, we should get into a contract where we're giving each other feedback. Now, the easiest and best way to begin to put your toe in the water of that is asking for feedback for yourself. Not only welcoming feedback, but say to another individual, listen, while we're working together, I really want to be the best I can possibly be. Would you please give me some feedback on how I can show up better? What kind of skills could I bring to the table beyond what I'm already bringing? What kind of style or tone or what kind of process? What could I do that would make our mission more fruitful? What could I do to better serve us and our team relationship? Right? You setting that standard, you do that repeatedly enough, people will start to ask it from you as well. But I do believe that the physical, verbal contract needs to be clear among people as well. And you need to set that standard as a leader. Do we want to learn from each other? Do we want to grow together? Do we want, while we're working together, to go 30% higher, to be 30% more skilled, more capable? Do we all want to be better leaders of this team? Do we all want to be better co-creators? If so, then let's make an agreement. And you can even set standard at times. We're going to talk a lot more about this in the book, but you can set standard times during your group meeting where just you're dealing with feedback. In the meantime, let me give you some very specific advice, some lots of tips. I've got a lot of them. Because this, as I said originally, was the heft of the book. I really wanted you to be the best coach possible in your life. Number one tip, ask for permission. I've made this mistake so many times where I assumed I had the permission to give feedback, but I did not. And sometimes it's even with an associate. Somebody reported to me in the past, and I thought I had permission to give feedback, and I didn't. Ask for permission. Ask for permission. And then, at least in the early stages, even say to somebody, maybe we could set a time and a place where that would be appropriate. You could even say in advance that you want it to be two-way feedback and you'd like them to come. But always set, again, the standard that we're doing it in service of each other. It's not nitpicking or critical in a negative way, but instead it's lifting each other up because we want to be better, right? The next piece is I want you to focus on the future and give them power. What I mean by that is, I always like to give feedback about how I feel my feedback would help them in their future. You know, you could easily say, I noticed you did something and I want you to do it differently. That tends to lead somebody into a defensive mindset. Instead of that, you could say, you know, one of the things that I have really seen in your relationship with some of your peers is, you know, in the next meeting, I really think you could be a better leader of the team if sometimes you just let people listen a little bit more and then comment afterward. I think sometimes people feel a little cut off in their relationship with you, but I know you don't. I know you're just excited, and I know you really don't want to do that. But instead, no, that's a forward thinking. In a next meeting, you might consider, I humbly might suggest, etc., as opposed to saying you cut people off, right? Looking back can create defensiveness. Looking forward and giving them the power. The other thing about giving them the power is letting them know, remember, this is your peer. This is not a person that reports to you. You're not saying to them, if you don't do this, I'm going to fire you. You're basically saying, I want to be of service to you and the mission. Therefore, I'm giving you some advice. Feedback in this case, nobody has to take it. Nobody has to take your feedback. You're given the feedback because you're generously observing something you think could be beneficial to somebody, right? That's a big shift. The old feedback was given by your manager and you had to do it, or at least you thought you had to do it. Today, the feedback is given because you care. And as a result, people don't have to take your advice. Be clear that people don't have to take your advice. I'm giving you this advice as just a thought. You can do whatever you want to with it. You can throw it out. I love you. It's all good. You know, you don't have to do any of this. Deheat the feedback process, because people are so used to getting feedback that they have to do. If you deheat it by just being data that you think could be valuable to somebody, it makes it much easier for them to receive, okay? I even do it with my kids, by the way. I mean, I say to my kids, you can take whatever feedback you want. Here's some advice. And do it or don't do it. Now, mind you, if they don't do it, there's consequences. I won't pay their rent. But at the end of the day, they won't fight you if you give them the permission and the authority and control of themselves and how they take their own feedback. So to that end, make sure that you let the feedback go once you've given it. It's a gift, you've given it, there it is. Now, one of the best ways to do feedback is if you actually lead somebody into the self-revelation of what you're trying to teach them, through good questions and through self-discovery. You know, being able to ask good questions. How did that last meeting go, you thought? Do you feel people feel empowered in our meetings? This is really getting to the question of having a person realize that if people spoke more and if I cut them off less, that they would actually have a better experience in meetings and my leadership would be more powerful. So questions leading to self-discovery is very powerful. I'm going to reinforce this. I said it earlier and I just want to reinforce it one more time. Care. Care, care, care. You need to make sure that this individual knows that you deeply care about them and their success. The only reason you're being so audacious to offer feedback in this situation is because you do care and you want them to be successful and you care about the mission and you care about them. It's so, so important that that's true. Now, on a personal basis, you could set accountability. You can say, I'd love to get your feedback and here's what I'm going to do with it once you get it. I'm going to go do this, I'm going to go do that, I'll report back to you. You can set a standard for accountability by your behavior without having to demand a standard of accountability from them, okay? Be present. This happens to us all the time. We're on our phones, we're in our own heads, we're thinking about the next meeting. Make sure that when you're giving your feedback, it's really present, you're focused, you're centered on that individual. Very, very important. Now, a lot of people think that this is only among peers that I'm talking about, but I'm also talking up. You can use these same philosophies in speaking to your boss and to people who are higher levels of the organization. If you go back through all of these, none of them assume any level that you're higher than an individual. And in fact, if you lead with generosity and you care, I personally would love to have my team give me more coaching, that if I knew they cared, not if they're pissed off or judgmental about me, but if I knew they cared and they believe in our mission, they care and love me, then I would love to take this kind of feedback from them as well. If they take the time and follow all of this advice to make me a better leader and coach me every single day to be a better leader. Now, I don't think I'm that different than a lot of people, but you do have to set psychological safety of people who might be more defensive, etc. You've got to work harder with those individuals than you do with others. To avoid defensiveness, make sure that when you're leading in this kind of feedback that you really do check your emotions. Make sure that you don't heat. Make sure that you don't express discontent or concern. You've got to really check your emotions in this process for it to land well. And then when people give you feedback, say thank you. Say thank you. You don't have to agree with it, but say thank you. Let them know how appreciative of the courage you are of them. Every relationship has coaching in it. Your spousal relationships, your children relationships, all of your team relationships. I want you to be a better coach of the people around you. I want you to be coached by the people around you. You know, it used to be that you'd look up for your coaching from your manager. Now you have to look out. This chapter is going to be very powerful for you. These simple exercises, I want you to imagine somebody on your team that you can begin to create a co-developing relationship. Start easy. Start with somebody that you already love, you already respect, you already care for in your team, you think is fantastic. Just say, hey, listen, let's meet once a week, once a month, whatever is the right cadence. And the two of you enlist in a coaching, co-coaching, co-elevating relationship and dialogue. And then once the two of you have done it, start spreading it to others. It's a very powerful tool to make sure that you are going higher together.